In the last video, you learned how to use require to load in modules that come with Node.js. In this video, you are going to learn how to use require to load in other files you created inside of your project. This is going to let you move functions outside of app.js into more specific files, which is going to make your application easier to scale, easier to test, and easier to update. To get started, the first thing we're going to do is make that new file. Now, in the context of our Notes app, the new file is going to store various functions for writing and reading notes. For the moment, we're not going to be worrying about that functionality, but we are going to create the file where it will eventually live. This file is going to be notes.js, and we're going to save it inside of the root of our application, right alongside app.js and greetings.txt. For the moment, all we're going to do inside of Notes is use console.log to print a little log showing the file has been executed. Starting notes.js. Perfect. Now we have a log on the top of Notes and one on the top of app. I'm going to change that to app.js. Awesome. With this in place, we can now require the Notes file. It doesn't export any functionality, but that's fine. And by the way, when I say export, I mean the Notes file. It doesn't have any functions or properties that another file can take advantage of. We'll look at how to export stuff in just a second. For now, though, we're going to load our module in much the same way we loaded in the built-in Node modules. Let's go ahead and make a const. I'm going to call this one Notes, and we're going to set it equal to the return result from require, just like we've done up above. Inside of here, we are going to pass in one argument that's going to be a string, but it is going to be a little different. In the past, we typed in the module name, but what we have here is not a module. We have a file, notes.js. What we need to do is tell Node where that file lives using a relative path. Now, relative paths start with // which points to the current directory that the file is in. In this case, this points us to the app.js directory, which is the root of our project. From here, we don't have to go into any other folders to access notes.js. It's sitting right here, so we can type its name. With this in place, we can now save app.js and see what happens when we run our application. I'm going to go ahead and run the app using node app.js. And right here, you see we get our two logs. First, we get starting app.js, and then we get starting notes.js. Now, starting notes.js comes from here, and it only runs because we required the file inside of app.js. If I comment out this line, save the file, and rerun it from the terminal, you can see the notes file never executes because we never explicitly touch it. We never call it inside of the terminal like we do here, and we never require it. For now, though, we are going to be requiring it, so I'm going to uncomment that line. And by the way, I'm using command / to comment and uncomment lines quickly. This is a keyboard shortcut available in most text editors. If you're on Windows or Linux, it might not be command, it might be control or something else. Go ahead and just click around on there and try to find the one that works with / just to the left of the shift key to comment and uncomment lines. It's going to save you a lot of time down the line. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, and I'll try to explain as many of them as I can. If I'm using one that I haven't explained and you're curious, please just ask in the Q&A. I'd be happy to tell you exactly how it's done. For now, though, the focus is going to be to export something from notes.js that we can use in app.js. Inside of notes.js, actually, inside of all of our Node files, we have access to a variable called module. I'm going to use console.log to print it to the screen so we can explore it over in the terminal. Module, just like this, is available in all of our files. Let's go ahead and rerun the file to explore it. Right here, we get a pretty big object. Now, truth be told, we're not going to be using most of these properties. We have things like ID, exports, parent, file name, and a bunch more. The only one we're ever going to use in this course is exports. This is pretty much the only useful one here. Exports is fantastic. It's an object on the module property, and everything on this object, this gets exported. This object gets set as the variable right here, notes. That means we can set properties on it, and those will get set on notes, and we can use them inside of app.js. Let's take a quick look at how that works. What we're going to do is define an age property using module.exports, the object we just explored over in the terminal. And we know it's an object because we can see it right here, which means I can add a property age and set it equal to my age, which is 25. Then I can go ahead and save this file and move into app.js to take advantage of this new age property. Notes is going to be storing all of my exports, in this case, just age. Right here, after the greeting, I'm going to say you are followed by the age. Inside of template strings, we use $ with curly braces, notes dot age. And I'll put a period at the end. And now our greeting should say, hello, Andrew, you are 25. It's getting the 25 from our separate file, which is fantastic. Let's take a quick moment to rerun the program over inside of the terminal using the up arrow key and the enter key. Back inside of the app, we can open greetings.txt, and sitting right here, you see we have, hello, Andrew, you are 25, which is awesome. Using require, we were able to require a file that we created, and this file stored some properties that were advantageous to the rest of the project. Now, obviously, this is a pretty contrived example. We're not going to be exporting static numbers. The real goal of exports is to be able to export functions that get used inside of app.js. Let's take a quick moment to export two functions. Right here, I'm going to set module.exports.addNote equal to a function. Function, followed by opening and closing parentheses, followed by the curly braces. Now, throughout the course, I'm going to be using arrow functions where I can, like right here. To convert a regular ES5 function into an arrow function, all you do is you remove the function keyword and replace it with a equals greater than sign right between the parentheses and the opening curly braces. Now, there are some more subtleties to arrow functions we'll be talking about throughout the course, but if you have an anonymous function, you can swap it to an arrow function without any problems. The big difference is that the arrow function is not going to bind the this keyword or the arguments array, which we'll be exploring throughout the course. So if you do get some errors, it's good to know that the arrow function could be the cause. For now, though, we're going to keep things really simple using console.log to print add note. This is going to let us know that the add note function was called. And we're going to go ahead and return some string like new note. Now, this function is getting defined in notes.js, but we can take advantage of it over inside of app.js. Let's take a quick second to comment out both the append file and user line. I can highlight both and use that keyboard shortcut we talked about to comment both of them out. And right here, all I'm going to do is make a variable called result, or res for short, and set it equal to the return result from notes.addNote. Now, the add note function is a dummy function for the moment. It doesn't take any arguments, and it doesn't actually do anything. So we can call it without any arguments. Then we're going to print the result variable like this, and we would expect the result variable to be equal to that string new note. If I save both of my files and rerun things from the terminal, right here you can see new note prints to the screen at the very end, and just before it, add note prints. This means that we required successfully our notes file, we called add note, and its return result was successfully returned to app.js, which is fantastic. Using this exact pattern, we're going to be able to define our functions for adding and removing notes over here in our notes.js file, but we'll be able to call them anywhere inside of our app, including in app.js. Now it's time for a quick challenge. What I'd like you to do is make a new function in notes.js called add. This add function is going to get set on the exports object. And remember, it's an object, so you can set multiple properties. This add function is going to take two arguments, A and B. It's going to add them together and return the result. Then, over inside of app.js, I'd like you to call that notes add function, passing in two numbers, whatever you like 9 and -2. Then print the result to the screen and make sure it works correctly. I can get started by removing the call to add note, since this is not going to be needed for the challenge. So take a moment, create that add function inside of notes.js, call it inside of app.js, and make sure the proper result prints to the screen. Take a moment, pause the video, knock that out, and when you're done, click play. How'd it go? Hopefully you were able to make that function and call it from app.js. The first step in the process is going to be to define the new function. Right here, I'm going to set module.exports.add equal to that function. Let's set it equal to an arrow function. If you used a regular function, that is perfectly fine. I just prefer using the arrow function when I can. And inside of here, we are going to be getting two arguments. We're going to be getting A and B. All we need to do is return the result. Really simple. We're going to return A plus B, just like this. Now, this was the first part of your challenge, defining a utility function in Notes.js. The second part was to actually use it over in app.js. Right here, we can use our function by printing console.log result with a colon, and this is just for formatting. And as the second argument, we're going to print the actual result. Notes.add, and we're going to add up two numbers. Let's go ahead and add 9 and -2. The result here should be 7. If we go ahead and run the program, you can see we get just that. 7 prints to the screen. If you were able to get this, congratulations, you successfully completed one of your first challenges. These are going to be sprinkled throughout the course, and they're going to get progressively more complex. In the beginning, I'm going to lead you through the process, not leaving too much open-ended. Later in the course, though, it's going to be really important to your own learning to have a lot of time to explore different ways to do things. This means the problems will be a little more open-ended, as will the solutions. Don't worry, for now, we're going to keep the challenges pretty explicit. I'll tell you exactly what I want and exactly how I want it done. Now, you can go ahead and play around with different ways to do it. That is perfectly fine. The real goal is to just get you writing code independent of following someone else's lead. That is where the real learning happens. That is it for this one. We now know how to require other files that we created, and we know how to export things like properties and functions from those files. This makes the module system inside of Node super useful. Now, there really is only one more piece to the puzzle. We explored how to use built-in modules. We explored how to use modules we've defined. In the next video, we are going to explore how to use third-party modules. From there, we're going to start building the Notes application. So stay tuned. I will see you next time.